Rajiv here from Math Vibes. Today we're going to look at the January 2025 Math Paper 1 in detail. If you're just scared about the answers though, here you go. Additionally, I will be having a free maths marathon on the 5th, 4 p.m. Trinidad time till the morning. So if you're interested in joining for free, message me at the number on the screen and I'll add it to the chat. So let me go. Question 1. What percentage of 40 is 8? So they are saying of 40 is 8. So it's always is over of, because of is a whole amount and 8 is what we have. So it's going to be 8 all over 40 multiplied by 100. And why are we multiplying by 100? We're multiplying by 100 because percentages range from 0 to 100. So the zeros are going to cancel off. 4 into 4 is 1, 4 into 8 is 2, and then 2 by 10 is 20. So my answer is 1B. Question 2. The value of the digit 2 in the number 748.621 is... So I'm going to show all you a hack to figure out the answer. Starting off with 7, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that 7 means 700. And so that would obviously be 7 by 100. And so, another way to write 100 would be 10 to the power 2. Why am I saying 10 to the power 2? Well, 100 is the same thing as 10 by 10, which is 10 squared. So the 7 has a value of 10 to the power 2. Let's check out 4. Now 4 means 40. So this is 40. And so 40 will be 4 by 10. To write 10, it will be the same thing as 10 to the power 1. And lastly, 8. To write 8, I could write that as 8 by 10 to the power 0. So that has a value of 10 to the power 0. And for those of y'all who don't believe me, plug 10 to the power 0 in the calculator. You'll see that is 1. Right? So 8 by 1 is 8. So I could write 8 by 10 to the power 0. So 7 has a value of 10 squared. 4 has a value of 10 to the power 1. And 8 has a value of 10 to the power 0. So I want to ask all you, if you notice there's a pattern here. Each power is decreasing by a value of 1. So what do you think the value of 6 is going to be? Well, if you take away 1 from 0, it's going to be minus 1. Take away 1 from minus 1 is going to be 10 to the power minus 2. And then 10 to the power minus 3. Wow. So that being said, 2 has a value of 10 to the power minus 2. The story not finished yet. 10 to the power minus 2 means the same thing as 1 over 10 to the power 2. That's what it means. Anytime you have a negative power and say it's in the numerator, if you want it to become a positive power, you send it to the denominator. Keep that in mind. So anytime you change the position of something being raised to a power, the sign for the power changes. So my answer is 1 over 10 squared multiplied by 2, because the 2 was in that position. And so my answer is E. There's another way you could work it out, but I think this method I showed you all here is a nice way to come up with it in the exam, if you forget it. Now let's look at some alternative solutions. In standard 5, you should have known that this would have been 1/10, this would have been 1/100, and this would have been 1/1000. Now why am I saying 1/100? We got 1 over 10 squared, that's the same thing as 1 over 100, which is 1/100. So just by that knowledge, you should be able to figure out that this will be 200, which is 2 over 100, which is 2 over 10 squared. So question 3, we have to figure out the square root of 17 squared minus 15 squared. So again, I'm going to show you all a really cool hack. Drop out 1 if you're seeing difference of 2 squares, because that's what it is. So we have 17 squared, which is a squared number, minus 15 squared, which is also a squared number. So it's in the form a squared minus b squared. And anytime you have something in that form, you can write it as a plus b by a minus b. And so check this out real quick. So in this, just by looking at it and comparing, a is 17 and b is 15. So I could write that as 17 plus 15, right, times 17 minus 15. And check this, look how fast we're going to get the answer. 17 plus 15 is 32. And 17 minus 15 is 2. So what is 32 by 2? That's 64, right? And the square root of 64 is equal to 8. And we got the answer one time. So 3C. Let's just say they don't really like this method. There's another method they could have done. So the other method is manually multiplying. So we're going to find 17 squared and we're going to find 15 squared. So 17 squared is just 17 by 17. So let's do that multiplication real fast. 7 by 1 is 7, 1 by 1 is 1, 7 by 7 is 49, 1 by 7 is 7, 7 plus 4 is 11, so you are going to end up with 289. 289, that's 17 squared. So this is what 17 squared is equal to. Let's find for 15 squared now. So it's the same process, right? 15 by 15, and you're multiplying. So 5 by 1 is 5, 1 by 1 is 1, 5 by 5 is 25, 1 by 5 is 5, and 5 plus 2 is 7. So we're going to add that. 7 plus 5 is 12. Bring the 1 over here, and that's going to be 225. And that is what 15 squared is equal to. And so 17 squared minus 15 squared would be equal to, let's check it out. So 289 minus 225, and that would be equal to 64. And so if you want to find the square root of 17 squared minus 15 squared, that would be equal to the square root of 64, which is equal to 8. Right? So either how you do it, you're going to get the same answer, which is 8. So drop a 1 if you prefer the first method, and drop a 2 in the chat if you prefer the second method. So let's move on to question 4. In question 4, we're looking at a ratio. So the ratio of the number of pupils to the number of teachers is 20 to 1. If the number of pupils is 840, how many teachers are there? So at the start, we have 20 pupils to 1 teacher. And now the number of pupils increased to 840. So we definitely had to scale up this. But by how much? What did we have to multiply by 20 to get 840? That's the question we're asking. And so to figure that out, I could say 840 divided by 20, and I could figure out exactly how much it's scaled up by. So 2 into 8 is 4, and 2 into 4 is 2. So we had to scale up by 42 times to get 840 pupils. So obviously, if we are scaling up the number of students, we'll have to scale up the number of teachers by the same amount. So 1 by 42 is just 42, and so my answer for 4 is B. Let's look at question 5. A bag of apples can be shared equally among either 6, 10, or 15 children. The minimum number of apples that is likely to be in the bag is, so we're looking at LCM, lowest common multiple. So let's start off with the multiples of 6. 1 by 6 is 6, 2 by 6 is 12, 3 by 6 is 18, 4 by 6 is 24, 5 by 6 is 30. I think we could stop there. Right? So let's look at the multiples of 10 now. So that's going to be 10 by 1 is 10, 10 by 2 is 20, 10 by 3 is 30, and we can stop there. Let's look at 15 now. So that'll be 1 by 15 is 15, 2 by 15 is 30, I could probably go one more, 3 by 15 is 45. So I just now generated a good amount of multiples for 6, 10, and 15 respectively, and so we're looking for the smallest common multiple. So I'm seeing 30 right across the board. So 30 would have to be the lowest common multiple. Some of you all might have thought 60, right? And while 60 is a common multiple, it's not the lowest multiple, it's actually 30. So the answer for this question is the answer for question 5 is E. Let's look at question 6 now. 99 by 101 has the same value as, so hold my hand, don't get lost. So it's going to be 99, and with another way I could write 101. I could write 101 as 100 plus 1. And so then I'll use the distributive properties to expand the brackets. So that's going to be 99 times 100 and 99 times 1. So that's going to be 99 multiplied by 100, right? And I have a plus sign in the middle, so I'll write back the plus sign here. And then 99 times 1. So my answer is going to be 6D. Question 7. Which of the following sets is defined by x is an element of integers, minus 2 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 4? First of all, what exactly is an integer? An integer is just a whole number. That's literally what an integer is. Since it never specified, in this instance, an integer could be a negative or a positive whole number. Right? So anytime I'll see this notation, and the notation here is a is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to b. Anytime you see this notation, just know that your set of values are going to be in between the lower value and the upper value. So we're looking for an option that goes from -2 to 4. So -2 to 4 will be -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the only option that is correct is D. So 7D. Question 8. The following Venn diagram shows two intersecting sets P and Q. In the Venn diagram, the number of elements in P is 6, the number of elements in Q is 8, and the number of elements in P intersect Q is 4. They want us to figure out the number of elements in the shaded region. So in other words, they want us to figure out P union Q, which is the whole set over here. Now I'm going to show you all the very first method with the formula, and I'm going to explain how they came up with the formula. So the formula is number in P union Q would be equal to the number of elements in the individual sets, so P plus Q, subtracted from the intersection. Now why are we subtracting it from the intersection? Let me give you an example. Let me just say it had two clubs, right? A bio club, and it had Jeff, Terry, and Bob. And let me just say it had a physics club, and in the physics club it had Rajiv and it had Jerry. If I asked you the number of people in both clubs, would you tell me 5? Chances are you wouldn't tell me 5, right? You would tell me 4. Why would you tell me 4? You would tell me 4 because you wouldn't count Jerry twice. Jerry is one person. And so if I wanted to figure out the total amount of people, I would add up the two sets, so that would be 5, and then I would subtract it from 1 because that's the overlapping region and that's the intersection. So if you don't want to count repeats, you have to subtract the intersection to figure out the actual value. And so that's just going to be 6 plus 8, which is 14, minus 4. 14 minus 4 is just 10. So my answer is 8B. Right, so that's one way you can do it, and obviously the other method is just the intuitive approach. Obviously you don't want to count the overlapping region, so you would subtract it from the total. So again, that'll just be 6 plus 8 minus 4, and yeah, you'll get 10. Cool, let's move on to question 9. In which of the following pairs of sets is one set not a subset of the other? So something would be a subset of something else if you have a big set that contains all the elements of the small set. So look out for things in common between the two sets. So let's check out option A. Option A says multiples of 12 and factors of 3. So let's look at some multiples of 12. I'm just going to generate a couple. So 1 by 12 is 12, 2 by 12 is 24, 3 by 12 is 36, 4 by 12 is 48. Okay, I think I've generated enough for you to get the point. Let's look at set Q now. Set Q are the factors of 3. So what numbers could go into 3 without leaving a remainder? Well, 1 could go into 3 times, so 1 is our answer. And 3 could go into 3, obviously could go into itself 1 time. So 1 and 3. Now, just by looking at these two sets, are you all seeing anything in common? We're not. And so these two are examples of disjoint sets, not subsets, disjoint sets. So my answer is A. A cannot be a subset. But then you're probably wondering, well, how would I know if it's a subset? Well, let me look at option B. I can give you an example. So if we are looking at option B, I'm going to show you why it's a subset. So let's define set E first. Set E is factors of 6. So factors of 6 would be numbers that could go into 6 without even a remainder. So that would be like 1, 2, 3, and 6. So that is set E. Let's look at set F. So set F would be factors of 12. So factors of 12 would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. So I want to draw your attention to something. Isn't there all the elements of E in F? Look at that. So in E we have 1 and in F we have 1. In E we have 2 and in F we have 2. In E we have 3 and in F we have 3. In E we have 6 and in F we have 6. So therefore, E would be a subset of F because F contains all the elements of E and it's bigger. And what would that look like? That would look like this if I draw it really fast. So this would be set F, and inside set F would be set E, because set F contains all the elements of E. Question 10. All students in a class play Scrabble or checkers or both. If 36% of the students play Scrabble only and 48% of the students play checkers only, what percentage of students play both games? So we already have the amount of students that play Scrabble or checkers, so I'm just going to add that up. So that's going to be 36 plus 48, right? 36 plus 48, so look how I'm going to do it in my head. So 6 plus 8 is 14, right? And then 3 plus 4 is 7. So I'll have to add on the 1 from the 14, and so that's just going to be 84. So 84% represents Scrabble or checkers. So to figure out both, I would just subtract 84 from 100. Why are we subtracting it from 100? Well, because 100% represents the total amount of students in the class. So 84 take away from 100 is 16. It's going to be 16%. So it's going to be 10B. Drop a 1 in the chat if you're understanding everything I'm saying so far. Question 11. The following Venn diagram shows two intersecting sets. The number in each set is, so use a universal set. H is hockey and V is volleyball. Alright? How many students play either hockey or volleyball but not both? So if they said not both, then we are excluding the intersection. So we are strictly looking at 5 and 4. So 5 students would play hockey alone and 4 students would play volleyball alone. So 5 plus 4 is just 9. We don't have to do any fancy maths for that. So the answer for 11 is 9. So C. 12. The set of positive integers that are divisible by 7 is an example of, so that's an example of an infinite set. Notice they never close off the set, and so we could generate an infinite amount of positive integers that are divisible by 7. For instance, 7, 14, 28, 35, 42, 49. It just goes on and on forever, right? Because they said the set of positive integers, they never defined it, they never close it off, so this set could go on indefinitely. And so you'd have an infinite amount of positive integers that are divisible by 7. So that's an infinite set. Question 13. The following diagram shows part of a shopping bill. The correct values for P, Q, and T are, so first let's find for P. So the total cost for 4 kg of flour is $12.40. So if I wanted to figure out P, which is a unit cost, I would just divide $12.40 by 4. So P is going to be equal to 12.40 divided by 4. So 4 into 4 is 1, 4 into 12 is 3, and 4 into 40 cents is 10. Right, so my first answer is $3.10. That's P. Right, let's find for T next. So we have the cost of the flour, the sugar, and we have the subtotal. And so if I wanted to figure out for T, I would just need to add up these two and take it away from $40.40 to figure out the missing amount here. So that's going to be, so T is going to, so let's add. So that's going to be $40.40 and $12.40 plus $7.20, that would be $19.60. So let's subtract it now. So that's going to be 40.40 take away from 19.60. So 0 minus 0 is just 0, right? But we would have to borrow 1 because 4 minus 6 can't happen. So we're going to take 1 from the 4, and so that's going to become 3 now. This is going to become 10, but we're going to take 1 from that, so it's going to become 9. And we're going to add the 1 to the 4. So that's 14 minus 6, which is 8. And so 9 minus 9 is 0, and 3 minus 1 is 2. So we now have what T is equal to. So this is T. T is $20.80. So now we need to figure out for Q. So how are we going to find for Q? It's the same process as how I found for P. If we know the total cost price for 8 kg of rice, I will just divide that by 8 to find for the unit cost price. So Q is going to be equal to $20.80 divided by 8. So 8 could go into 20, 2 times, and so the remainder will be 4, because 8 by 2 is 16, and you'll have 4 remaining. So I'll place the 4 over here, and then 8 into 48 is 6. So that's going to be $2.60. Right, so which option corresponds to that? Let's check. So we're looking for P to be $3.10. We're looking for Q to be $2.60 and T to be $20.80. So the answer for this is D. Right, so 13D. Let's move on. The following diagram shows part of a shopping bill. According to the bill, the amount paid for VAT is... So VAT would be 8% off the subtotal. So that would be 8 all over 100 multiplied by $40.40. So let me show you how we're going to do this. So first things first, I could split this question up into 2 parts. So I could divide by 100 first and then multiply by 8. So if I'm dividing 40.40 by 100, I will shift my decimal places 2 spaces to the left. And so that's going to be $40.40. So 1, 2. And so that's now going to be equal to 0.404. Cool. And now I can multiply by 8. So that will be 8 multiplied by 0.404. That might be a little hard to do, so let's do the full working for it. 0.404 multiplied by 8. And so 8 by 4 is 32. 0 by 8 is 0, plus 3 is 3. 4 by 8 is 32 again. Right? 0 by 8 is 0, and I'll place the 3 over here. So we have 3.23 to the nearest cent. And so my answer would be B. So 14B. Let's move on. Question 15. At a bank, EC $2.60 is equivalent to US $1. For every US $1 exchanged, EC 10 cents is deducted as an exchange tax. How many EC dollars will Leon receive if he exchanges 1,000 US dollars? So here what, right? For every $1 US that you exchange, you are going to get EC $2.60. However, 10 cents will be deducted. So what are you actually getting? Well, you're actually getting, so for every $1 US you exchange, you're actually getting EC $2.50, because you're losing 10 cents. Right? You have to pay the exchange tax. And so now that I know what 1 US is, to find for 1,000 US, I just multiply by 1,000 on both sides. And so that being said, I'll end up with EC 2,500, because 2.50 by 1,000, since I'm multiplying this time, I'm going to shift my decimal place 3 spaces to the right. So 1, 2, 3. So I'll have to add an extra 0, and that's how I got 2,500. Awesome. Question 16. A calculator which is marked at $120 is sold for cash at a 30% discount. How much change would Susan receive if she pays for the calculator with a 100% bill? So there are 2 ways you could do this. You could figure out what the discount was and then take that away from 120. That's fine. But I'm going to do it in one solid step. So if she sold it at a 30% discount, then she would have sold it for 70% of its original value. So we're going to find 70% of 120. So 70% out of 120 would be, so the zeros will cancel off here, the zeros will cancel off here, and 7 by 12 is just 84. So she would have paid $84, and she paid with a $100 bill. So the change would be 100 minus 84. And so that will be equal to $16. So my answer for 16 is A, 16. What a coincidence. So anytime while you're in doubt, just choose the number corresponding to the question. Yeah. Question 17. By selling a bag for $1,140, Vishal incurred a loss of 5%. At what price should he have sold the bag to gain a profit of 5%? So this question is a little tricky, but let me take it one step at a time. So Vishal incurred a loss of 5%. What that means is he would have sold it for 95% of its original value. And so 95% would be equal to $1,140. And so here what? I would find for 1% first, because once we know what 1% is, we could find for every single thing. So to find for 1%, I would divide both sides by 95. And so that's going to be 1,140 divided by 95. Let's see if we could simplify this. So 95 into 114 is 1 time, and you'll have a remainder of 19. And 95 going to 190 2 times. So 1% is going to be equal to $12. And so if we want to get a profit of 5%, then we would have had to sell it for 105% of its original cost. So we'll have to multiply by 105 on both sides. So 105% would be equal to 105 multiplied by 12. So let's do this real quick. So 5 by 1 is 5, 0 by 1 is 0, 1 by 1 is 1, 5 by 2 is 10, 0 by 2 is 0, 1 by 2 is 2, right? And you're going to end up with 1260. So you would have had to sell it for a price of 1,260 to get a profit of 5%. So 17D. Not sure why it's a square. Right, question 18. The cost of a machine is estimated to be decreasing at a rate of 10% every year. If it currently costs 6,000, what will be the estimated value of the machine after 2 years? So this question is an example of compound interest, but I'm going to show you all in a manner that's simpler. So in year 1, it would have lost 10% of its original value. So it would have remained with 90% of its value. So I'm going to find 90% of 6,000, and that would be the amount of money it would be worth at the end of the year. So the zeros are going to cancel off, and so 90 by 60, that's just $5,400. So at the end of year 1, it would have depreciated to $5,400, right? So in year 2, it's going to be worth 90% of $5,400 at the end of year 2, because remember, it's depreciating at a rate of 10%. So 90 over 100 multiplied by 5,400. Again, the zero is going to cancel off. And so we have 90 by 54. So let's work that out. 90 by 54. 0 by 5 is 0. 9 by 5 is 45. 0 by 4 is 0. 9 by 4 is 36. So we just have to add those two. And so that's going to be 0, 6, 8, 4. So by the end of year 2, it should be worth $4,860. So for anybody that's confused, I'm going to go over the logic one more time. Every year, it's decreasing by 10%. So in the first year, it would have depreciated to $5,400, which is 90% of its original value. And in year 2, it would have been worth $5,400 at the start, but at the end, it will be worth 90% of $5,400, which is just $4,860. So drop a 1 in the chat if you're understanding so far. Question 19. A man pays 60 cents for every 200 meter cube of gas used, plus a fixed charge. If he pays $178.75 when he uses 5,500 meter cubes of gas, how much is the fixed charge? So here what, guys? At the start, what do we know? Well, we know that 200 meter cube costs 60 cents. So that's all we know, right? Trying to figure out how much 200s we have in 55,000. So I would say 55,000 all over 200, right? That's what I would do. And so 2 into 55, 27, and the remainder would be 1, right? And then 2 into 10 is 5, so that would be equal to 275. So in other words, what do we have? We have 275 200s in 55,000. And remember, for every 200 meter cube is 0.60. So I would have to multiply that 275 by the 0.60, which is 60 cents. Right? And I could write 60 cents as 60 over 100. Right? And so 2 into 6 is 3, 2 into 10 is 5, and well, 5 into 27 is 5. You'd have a remainder 2. So 5 is going to 25 5 times, so you'd end up with 55 by 3. So 55 by 3 would be 165, I believe. Right, 165. I'm not done as yet. To figure out the fixed charge, I would have to subtract this from the 178.75. Why? That's because we used 275 200 meter cubes of gas, and so it came up to a cost of 165. So to figure out the fixed charge, it's going to be 178.75 subtracted from 165.00, and so that should be, well, it's definitely going to be 0.75. Right? And so immediately the only answer that makes sense is A. But let's continue the calculation. And then to get 8, and we have 5, it'll be 3. And so that'll be 1. So the answer there is 13.75. And if you were to do the full working, it'll look a little something like this. Alright, so 5.7. Right, 8 minus 3, 6 minus 1, 1 minus 0. So that's 13.75. Question 20. The compound interest on 12,000 for 2 years at 10% per annum compounded annually is? So remember, the formula for compound interest would be A is equal to P by 1 plus the rate over 100 to the number of years. And so P is the principal value, that's the amount you invest in. R is the rate, N is the number of years, and A is the total amount you'll be getting at the end. So it's going to be 12,000 1 plus 10 over 100 to the power 2. Now I could write 1 as 100 over 100, and so if I combine that with 10 over 100, that's going to be 110 all over 100. That's going to be squared. And so let's continue here. So that's going to be equal to 12,000, and 110 squared would just be 110 by 110, and 100 squared would be 10000. A good bit of these zeros are going to cancel off actually, and so we end up with A is equal to 12 multiplied by 11 by 110. So let's work this out quickly. So first of all, let's work out 12 by 11. 12 by 11. So 2 by 1 is 2, 1 by 1 is 1, 2 by 1 is 2, 1 by 1 is 1. So that's going to be 2, 3, 1. That's going to be 132. Right? And so this product here is 132. So we need to multiply that by 110 now. So that's going to be 110 multiplied by 132. And so 0 by 1 is 0, 1 by 1 is 1, 1 by 1 is 1, 0 by 3 is 0, 1 by 3 is 3, 1 by 3 is 3, 0 by 2 is 0, 1 by 2 is 2, 1 by 2 is 2. So this is what we're going to end up with. So 0, 2, 5, 4, 1. We're going to end up with 14,520 at the end of the 2 years. So A is going to be equal to $14,520. And that is not my answer. They want us to figure out the compound interest. So that would be the interest we gained on 12,000. That would equal to 14,520 minus 12,000. And that would have been equal to $2,520. So the answer for this is B. Now there's another way you could have worked this question out, so let's look at that as well. And it's extremely similar to how I worked the previous question. So every year, you're going to gain 10%. So let me show you what I mean by that. At the end of the first year, in the bank, you'll have 110% the original. And so the zeros are going to cancel off. So you end up with 110 by 120 is 13,200. Right? And so that's the end of the first year. At the end of the second year, this amount is going to increase by 10% again. So it's going to become 110% of that. It's going to be 110% of 13,200. These zeros are going to cancel off again. And you know how to multiply 110 by 132. Right? And when you do that, you'll get 14520. And it's the same concept. If you want to find the compound interest, all you have to do is just subtract this from the 12,000, which is the amount of money you initially placed into the bank, the principal value. Plenty working, boy. Real working. Question 21. The product of a number p and its reciprocal may be written as. So what exactly is a reciprocal? So if you have a number p, I can write p as p over 1, and so the reciprocal would just be 1 over p. Reciprocal just means to flip something, right? So the answer would be p multiplied by 1 over p, because it said the product of a number p and its reciprocal. So this is p, this is product, and this is reciprocal. So my answer is 21D. 22. The following is a diagram of a rectangle. The area of the rectangle in centimeters squared is x squared. The equation that may be used to find the value of x is, so to find the area of a rectangle is just length by width. And so that's just going to be 2 by x minus 4. So my answer is A. Let's move on to question 23. Althea, Bob, and Chris collect shells. Althea has p shells. Okay, so Althea has p shells. Bob has twice as many shells as Althea, so that'll be 2p. Alright, and Chris has 4 more than the total number of shells that both Althea and Bob collected. So Chris will have this amount plus 4. So I'm going to write that back. So that's going to be 4 plus p plus 2p. And that'll be equal to the total amount. So let's simplify this. So we're going to look for all the like terms. And what are like terms? Like terms would be, for instance, all the p terms. So how much p terms do we have? We have 4. So p plus 2p is 3p. And I have 3p over here too. So that's going to be 6p. And I only have one number, so that's 6p plus 4. If you wanted, you could have factored out 2. And if I pull out 2 from that, that's going to be 3p plus 2. And watch, if I expand it back out, I should get back 6p plus 4. 2 by 3p is 6p, and 2 by 2 is 4, so we're correct. And so the option that best corresponds to this is 23D. Question 24. If 3 plus 2 over x is equal to 1, then the value of x is... Alright, so let me show you how to do this question. So we have 3 plus 2 over x is equal to 1. And so if you want to find for x, x definitely cannot be in the denominator. So to get rid of x from the denominator, I'll have to multiply throughout by x. And I'm going to show you all why we're doing that. So when you do that, that 3 is going to turn to 3x. Look at what's going to happen here. It's going to be 2 over x multiplied by x. And obviously it's going to be 1 by x, which is just 1x. But look at what's happening over here. The x and the x is going to cancel off, and so we're going to get rid of x from the denominator. So it's going to be 3x plus 2 is equal to 1x. And so if you want to find for x, you'd move across all the x terms to one side. So I'm going to move across the 1x by the 3x. And if you do that, its sign is going to change. Additionally, we're going to move across the plus 2 to the right hand side. So that's now going to become minus 2. So 3x minus 1x would leave you with 2x. It makes sense, right? 2x is equal to minus 2. And so to find for 1x, you divide both sides by 2. And so you're going to end up with x is equal to minus 1. And if you wanted to check if you were correct, you could have done that quickly. Just plug it in into the equation. So 3 plus 2 all over minus 1, that would be a positive divided by a negative is a negative, so that would turn to 3 minus 2, which is equal to 1, and that satisfies the equation, so that's correct. Alright, let's keep moving on. The value of 5 to the power n plus 1 by 5 to the power n plus 2 when n is equal to minus 1 is, so we're just subbing minus 1 wherever you see n. So that's going to be 5 to the power minus 1 plus 1 multiplied by 5 to the power minus 1 plus 2. 5 to the power minus 1 plus 1 is just 5 to the power 0, and 5 to the power minus 1 plus 2 is just 5 to the power 1. Now, some of them might think this is 0, but no. 5 to the power 0 is actually 1. Anything to the power 0 is 1. So that's going to be 1 by 5 to the power 1, which is just 5. So my final answer is just 5. So 25B. 26. If 40 students will take 20 days to paint a wall, how many days will it take to paint the wall if 10 more students are added, working at the same rate? So guys, this question is a little bit tricky. Why? Because it's an example of an inversely proportional relationship. Think about it. If more students paint the wall, the amount of time it would take would decrease. So we need to model an equation that represents this. And so you would say S is proportional to 1 over D because it's an inverse proportional relationship. What do I mean by that? If the number of students go up, then the days would decrease. And so this would be equal to K all over D, where K is a constant of proportionality. So this is inverse proportionality. So the first thing we have to do with these kind of questions is find for K. So at the start of the question, they gave us some nice information. They said if we have 40 students, it will take 20 days. So we could plug that information in to find for K. So let's do that. So the amount of students, S, is 40. The amount of days is 20. And so to find for K, I would need to multiply by 2 on both sides to get rid of the divided by 20. After multiplying both sides by 20, I'm going to get K is equal to 40 times 20. And so K is going to be equal to 800. So my equation is S is equal to 800 all over D. And so watch this. They want us to figure out how much time it would take if 10 more students were added. So if 10 more students are added, it would now go up to 50. So S would be 50. And so that would be equal to 800 over D. And so if I want to make D the subject of the formula, I would multiply both sides by D because D can't be in the denominator. And if I do that, I'm going to end up with 50D is equal to 800. Why 800 alone? Because again, if you're multiplying both sides by D, on the right hand side, the D and the D will cancel off. So you just end up with 800. That's why I multiply by D. And so 50D is equal to 800. So to figure out the amount of days, I would divide both sides by 50. And so D would be equal to 800 all over 50. So 5 into 8 is 1, remainder 3. 5 into 30 is 6. So it would take 16 days. So my answer for this particular question is 26C. So that question was tricky. 27. If P is equal to 2, 5 minus 1, 3, then the value of the determinant of P is... So if we want to find the determinant, all you have to do is multiply the leading diagonal and then subtract it from the lagging diagonal. So it's going to work out like this. So we're going to say 2 by 3, right? And then we're going to subtract it from minus 1 by 5. That's literally it. So I'm going to say 2 by 3. And I'm going to subtract that from minus 1 by 5. And so how is that going to work out? Let's see. 2 by 3 is 6. Minus 1 by 5 is minus 5. And so we have a negative by a negative. So that's going to turn to plus 5. And so 6 plus 5 is 11. So it's going to be 27D. 28. If A is equal to that matrix, then the order of A is... So when we're reading the order, it's always row by column. So it's the number of rows by number of columns. So how much rows we have here? Let's check it. 1, 2, 3. We have 3 rows. So it's going to be a 3 by, how much columns are we seeing? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 columns. So this is an example of a 3 by 4 matrix. And so my answer is going to be 28C. 3 by 4 matrix. Let's move on. Question 29. The following is a diagram of a parallelogram in which E to F is parallel to HG, EH is parallel to FG, and E to F is equal to K, and E to H is equal to M. Okay, and they want me to figure out what E to G would be. So I want to go from E to G, so I'm going to connect E to G. Guys, if I want to go from E to G, I could go from E to H and then H to G. Now, since H to G is parallel to E to F, that would also be K. And so if I want to go from E to G, I would just have to go M plus K. And so I'm looking for M plus K, which is the same thing as K plus M, because addition is commutative. So my answer is D. The other route you could have taken was also this route. So we know that EH is parallel to FG, and so it'll be the same direction. And if that's the case, we could have also taken E to F and F to G. E to F and F to G, and that's how you would have gotten the K plus M. So both of these methods are valid. Question 30. If 5xy is equal to 4, 10, 20, then the values of x and y are... So let's expand it out first. Let's multiply. So it's going to turn to 5x, 5y, and we're going to multiply out on the other side. And so that's going to be 4 by 10 is 40, and 4 by 20 is 80. So now we could equate. We could say 5x is equal to 40, and we could say 5y is equal to 80. And so if I want to find for 1x, I would have to divide both sides by 5. And so x would be equal to 8, because it would take 8 5s to make 40. And it's the same process over here. I would have to divide both sides by 5. So y will be equal to 80 over 5. So 5 into 8 is 1, remainder 3. 5 into 30 is 6. So y is equal to 16. So our answer is 8, 16. And so that answer is B, 30B. 31. The following diagram shows a cylinder whose diameter is 6 centimeters and height 21 centimeters. Given that pi is equal to 22 over 7, then the volume of the cylinder in centimeter cube is... Right. So to find the volume of a cylinder, it's pi r squared h. Pi in this case is 22 over 7. My radius is not 6. This is the diameter. And so to find the radius, I would need to divide it by 2. So that's going to be 3. So it's going to be 3 squared. My height is 21. And so that's going to be equal to 22 over 7 by 9 by 21. And so 7 into 7 is 1. 7 into 21 is 3. And so you'll end up with 22. 9 by 3 is 27. So 22 by 27. Let's work that out quickly. So 2 is 4. 2 by 2 is 4 again. 7 by 2 is 14. 7 by 2 is 14 again. Plus the 1 is 15. And so I would end up with 4, 9, 5. So my answer for this particular question is C. So 31, C. Question 32. In a rectangular garden plot 15 meters long and 12 meters wide, an area of 80 meters squared is used for vegetable garden. What area of the plot is not used for vegetable gardening? Okay, so here what? Let's find the total area first. So it's a rectangular plot, so it's going to be length by width. So the area is going to be 15 multiplied by 12. So let's work that out quickly to decide. I'm doing the full work in here so I don't get anybody confused. So 5 by 1 is 5, 1 by 1 is 1, 5 by 2 is 10, 1 by 2 is 2, plus the 3, that's going to be 180. So the total area is 180 meters squared. out of the 180 meters squared, she is using 80 meters squared for vegetable gardening. So the area that was not used for vegetable gardening would just be 100. So that'll be 180 minus 80, which is just equal to 100 meters squared. So 32b. 33. How long will a speedboat take to travel between two harbors which are 1080 kilometers apart if it travels at an average speed of 120 kilometers per hour? So remember, the formula for speed is equal to distance over time. So if we know the speed is 120, we know the distance is 1080, all we have to do is just find for time. So to find for time, I would multiply by t on both sides to get rid of it from the denominator. So on the left hand side, that's going to work out to be 120 multiplied by t. On the right hand side, the t's would cancel off, so it'll just be equal to 1080. So to find for 1t, I would have to divide both sides now by 120. The zeros would cancel off, and 12 could go into 108 9 times. So t is equal to 9 hours. And so my answer is 33b. Question 34. The lengths of the sides of a triangle are x, 2x, and 2x. If the perimeter is 20 centimeters, what is the value of x? So we have the lengths for all the sides, so perimeter is just the distance right around. So that's going to be x plus 2x plus 2x is equal to 20. And so x plus 2x, that's 3x. 3x plus 2x is 5x. We have 5x's all together, and that'll be equal to 20. So to find for 1x, I would need to divide both sides by 5. And so 1x would be equal to 4. 5 under 20 is 4. So 34a. Question 35. The following is a diagram of a trapezium. The perimeter of the trapezium in millimeters is... So this question kinda tricky. A lot of people would have not read that. They would have just go and do the question and forget it is in millimeters. Just be careful of that. So here what? We will work in meters first, and then I'll convert it to millimeters. So the perimeter of this shape would just be the distance right around. They gave us all the lengths, so that's fine. So P would be equal to 0.41. 0.41 plus 0.21, that would be 0.62, right? And 0.18 plus 0.12, that would be 0.30. And so altogether, that's going to be equal to 0.92 meters. But we want our answer in millimeters, so we have to make a conversion. Remember that 1 meter, so in 1 meter, there is 100 centimeters. And also recall that in 1 centimeter, there are 10 millimeters. So you'll have to multiply 100 by 10, and so that's going to be 1,000. And so in 1 meter, you have 1,000 millimeters. And so I'll multiply this by 1,000. And if I do that, the decimal place is going to shift 3 spaces to the right. So 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be equal to 920 millimeters. So my answer for this question is D. Let's continue. Question 36. The following diagram shows a circle centered at O. The major sector and minor arc are indicated. If the area of the major sector is 115.5 centimeters squared, then the diameter of the circle in centimeters is... So guys, let's work out this quickly. So if this is 90 degrees here, this would be a quarter of the circle. And if that's a quarter, then the remaining part would be 3/4. So 3/4 of the area is equal to 115. So let me get more space. So 3/4 of the area is given by this over here, the major sector. And that's equal to 115.5 centimeters squared. So if 3/4 of the area is that, and I want to find for the entire area, first of all, I could multiply throughout by 4. So 3a would be equal to 115.5 multiplied by 4. And then I could divide throughout by 3. And so that will be equal to 115.5 by 4 all over 3. So let's take our time with this. So 3 into 11 is 3, remainder 2. And 3 into 25 is 8, remainder 1. And 3 into 15 is 5. Okay, and so we have A is equal to 38.5 multiplied by 4. And so 38.5 by 4 would be equal to 38.5 multiplied by 4. 5 by 4 is 20. 8 by 4 is 32. We'll have to add only 2. So that'll be 34. 3 by 4 is 12. Don't forget the 3. So that's 15. So that'll be 154. So the total area will be equal to 154 centimeters squared. But why did we find this? Well, in the question, they wanted us to find the diameter. And watch this. The area of a circle is pi r squared. We know what the total area is. The total area is 154. We are taking pi as 22 over 7. And we don't know what the radius is, so I'm just going to write r squared. And so I would have to multiply by 7 on both sides first. Let me do that. So I'm going to say 154 by 7. And that will be equal to 22 r squared. Next thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 22. And so r squared will be equal to 154 times 7 all over 22. And so let's work this out quickly. So 22 could go into 154 7 times. And so r squared is going to be equal to 7 by 7, which is 49. And so the radius will be equal to the square root of 49. And so r is equal to 7. And so if we know the radius is 7, then the diameter will be 2 times the radius. So the diameter will just be 2 by 7, which is just 14 centimeters. And so that's the answer. That was quite a lot of working. Let's move on. Question 37. The following diagram shows a compound solid. The surface area of the compound solid in centimeters squared is... Alright, so there are 2 ways you can work this question out. Obviously, you have to break it up into the constituent shapes. But for this particular face, you could work it out in 2 ways. So when I look at this, I'm seeing a trapezium. And so I could just use the formula for a trapezium, which is a half a plus b by height. Now some of you all might not see that. And what you could do then, in that case, you could use the formula for area of a triangle to find for this and to find for this. But since I'm seeing that this is clearly a trapezium, I'm going to use our formula because it'll simplify the working. So we have 2 trapezoidal faces. This face and we have this face. We have a rectangular face on top. We have a rectangular base in the bottom. We have a square face over here. And we have a rectangular face to the back. So let's get cracking. To figure out the area of the trapezoidal faces, I'm going to find for one first and then just multiply it by 2. So that's going to be a half a plus b by height. So a and b are the parallel sides. So if this is 10 and this is 10, obviously this will be 10 and this will be 10. So this side over here is 18. This is 18. And this side over here will be 10. So the parallel sides are 18 and 10 respectively. And the height is 12. So that's going to be equal to a half 18 plus 10. And the height is 12. So a is going to be equal. So a half of 12 is 6 and 18 plus 10 is just 28. So let's do that multiplication. So 28 by 6. 6 by 8 is 48. 2 by 6 is 12. 12 plus 4 is 16. So that's going to be 168. Right. That being said, if the area of one trapezoidal face is 168 centimeters squared, then I will just multiply that by 2 to figure out for the other one. So the area of 2 trapezoidal faces, that would be equal to 168 by 2 and 168 by 2. Let's go down real quick. 8 by 2 is 16, 6 by 2 is 12, 13, 1 by 2 is 2, right? I'll be 2 Right, so what we just now found for, we found for this face. and we found for this face. Let's find the area of the top. So the area of the top, we have this dimension and we also have this dimension. This will be 10. So it's just going to be 13 by 10. So area of top rectangle, that is going to be 13 by 10. And 13 by 10 is 130 centimeters squared. Let's find for the square face in front. So the square face is quite simple. That is going to be 10 by 10, which is equal to 100 centimeters squared. We also have the rectangle to the end and at the bottom. So area of base. The base of the rectangle, whose length is 12 centimeters, so that's going to be 12 by 10, and that's going to be equal to 120 centimeters squared for the base, right? And for the other rectangle, that area of rectangle to the back, that's going to be equal to, we know this is 18, and we know this is 10, so that's going to be 10 by 18, and so that's going to be equal to 180 centimeters squared. So now we just have to add from our side. I believe that's it. So we just have 6 here. So 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 2 is 8, 8 plus 8 is 16. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we end up with 866. So 866 is the answer for this particular question. That was a lot of work. To the 8, the distance around a lake is 8 kilometers. On a map, the distance around the lake is represented by a length of 4 centimeters. The scale on the map is, alright, so we have 4 centimeters to 8 kilometers. That's the situation we have. So here what? We need to convert the kilometers to centimeters. So guys, 1 kilometer will be equal to 1,000 meters. And remember, in 1 meter, we have 100 centimeters. And so 1 kilometer will be 1,000 by 100, which is 1 followed by 5 zeros. And so in that case, 8 kilometers would just be 8 followed by 5 zeros. Right. So that's going to be 4, 2, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would divide throughout by 4 if I do that. 4 into 4 is 1, 4 into 8 is 2. And so my answer for this question is 38D. 39. The following table shows the number of words that a group of 60 students got correct in a spelling test that consisted of 10 words. The mode of the number of words spelled correctly is, so we are looking to see which number of words they spelled correctly most frequently. So 3 students got 6 correct, 18 students got 7 correct, 7 students got 8 correct, 16 students got 9 correct, and 16 students got 10 correct. So the highest number there is 18, and that would correspond to 7. So 39A. Question 40. The following table shows the number of words that a group of 60 students got correct in the same table as before. The median number of words the students spelled correctly during the test is... Alright, so here what we have to do. Let's find the cumulative frequency real quick. So this would just be 3. This would be 21. This would be 28. This would be... That'll be 2, 3, that'll be 44. And this would be 60. So let me explain what's going on. Students 1 through 3 spelled 6 words correctly. Then the 4th to the 21st student spelled 7 words correctly. Then the 22nd to the 28th student spelled 8 words correctly. Then the 29th to the 44th student spelled 9 words correctly. And the 45th to the 60th student spelled 10 words correctly. So I'll write it down here. So 3 is 6. 4 to 21 is 7. 22 to 28, that is 8. 29 to 44, 9. And 45 to 60, 10. And if we want to find the median will be a half n plus 1, and that would tell us the position of the median. So the median is given by Q2, and that would be a half n plus 1, and this will tell me the position, and so I have 60, so that's going to be a half of 61, and so half of 61, that's 30.5. So that tells me that my median is in between the 30th and the 31st term. So let's check this out. So we're looking to go between 30 and 31. So I'm looking at this. So the 29th student, the 30th student, the 31st student, the 32nd student, all the way to the 44th student got 9. They spelled 9 words correctly. So that means that the 30th student would have spelled 9 words correctly, and the 31st student would have spelled 9 words correctly as well. And so 9 plus 9, the average between that is just 9. And so my answer here is 9. 40B. Question 41. The following pie chart shows the popular games played by a group of students. If 180 students play football, how many students are in the group? So we have 90 degrees for football, and so a full circle is 360 degrees. So you should know that 90 over 360 is a quarter. So a quarter of the students play football, and that is 180. So if I wanted to find the full number, I would just multiply 180 by 4, and let's see what I would get. So 0 by 4 is 0, 8 by 4 is 32, 1 by 4 is 4, 4 plus 3 is 7, so the correct answer is 720. So understand my logic again. They said 180 people play football, so that would be a quarter. So if a quarter of the students just play football, then that number multiplied by 4 would give us the total amount. Question 42. The following chart shows the amount of fish bought in kilograms by the first 60 customers at a fish market. How many customers bought at least 6 kg of fish? What does at least mean? At least means more than or equal to. So we're looking at 6 and past 6. So let's see the reading. So this is in between 10 and 12. So this is 11 here. So this would be 11. Then 7 would be between 4 and 6, so that's 5. Then 8 would be 4. 9 is in between 6 and 8, so that's 7. And 10 is between 2 and 4, that's just 3. So I'm going to add up that. So 11 plus 5 plus 4 plus 7 plus 3, 11 plus 5 is 16. 16 plus 4 is 20. 20 plus 7 is 27. 27 plus 3 is 30. So 30. 30 is the answer there. 43. The following diagram shows the cumulative frequency curve of the height of 20 seedlings. They want us to figure out the semi-interquartile range. So how are we going to find the semi-interquartile range? Well, to find the semi-interquartile range, SIQR, we first need to figure out the interquartile range, which is Q3 minus Q1, and you're going to divide that by 2, hence the semi in the name. So to find for Q3, it's just going to be 3/4 of n, and this is going to tell us the position of it with respect to the cumulative frequency. So that's going to be 3/4, 20, and 3/4 of 20, I believe that's 15, and Q1 is going to be 1/4 of 20, and so that's going to be 5. So let's go on to the cumulative frequency axes and take a read off. So Q1 is going to be 5, and let's see what that is. So that is actually in between 1.2 and 1.4. So if it's in between 1.2 and 1.4, it's going to be 1.30, and that is what Q1 is. Let us find for Q3 now. Q3 will be 15. So that's going to be right here. This would be 2.2, 2.4, and so this will be 2.6. And that is what Q3 is. So the semi-interquartile range would be Q3, which is 2.60, minus Q1, which is 1.30, divided by 2. Now 2.60 minus 1.30 is just 1.30, and 1.30 divided by 2. So I'm gonna show you guys how we're gonna do that. So 2 into 13. 2 into 13 is 6, so that'll be 0.6. And the remainder there is going to be 1, So 2 into 10 is 5. So that's going to be 0.65. And so my answer is E. Let's move on. Question 44. 600 students sit an examination. The probability of a randomly selected student failing the examination is 1/5. How many students are expected to pass the examination? So if 1/5 of the students is expected to fail, then the other remaining fraction is expected to pass, right? So the other remaining fraction will be 4/5, and so that's going to be 4/5 of 600. And so 5 into 60 is 12, so that's going to be 120, and 120 by 4 is just 480. So 480 out of these 600 students are expected to pass. Which of the following line graphs represents x is such that -2 is less than x is less than or equal to 4? So remember what I told you, anytime you see this notation where it's a last time I told you it was a is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to b, but it's more or less the same thing. Anytime you see this notation, it just means that your answer will be in between the lowest value and the biggest value. Now, since there's less than by the -2, it would suggest an open circle. Over here, it's less than or equal to, and so anytime it's equal to, it's a solid circle. So let me just color this real quick. So you're looking to see which diagram has an open circle and then a solid circle. So the only diagram with that is D. So 45D is your answer. Let's move on. 46. Which of the following represents the equation of a straight line? So we're looking for something in the form y is equal to mx plus c. And the only one that looks like that will be option B. So B is an example of a straight line. 47. What is the gradient of the straight line 2y is equal to -3x minus 8? So we cannot infer the gradient because it's not in the form y is equal to mx plus c. So we need it to be in the form y is equal to mx plus c. The reason why it's not in that form is because we have a 2 by the y, so we'll have to divide throughout by 2. So if we divide throughout by 2, it's gonna be y is equal to -3 over 2x minus 8 all over 2. And so we're gonna end up with -3 over 2x minus 8 over 2 is -4. And so now it's in the form y is equal to mx plus c, and so we could directly compare. So the gradient would be -3 over 2, and the y-intercept would be -4 in case it asks for it. So my answer for 47 is D. 48. The following is a graph of a quadratic function. That being said, they want us to figure out the maximum point. So the maximum point would be this point over here. Now you have to be careful. When you're reading points, you always read the x value first and then the y value. So the x value here is 2 and the y value here is 4. So it's going to be 2, 4. So my answer for this particular question is D. 49. According to the following graph, the solution of the equations y is equal to 4x minus x squared and y is equal to 0 are. So a lot of people have a hard time understanding and believing that this is y is equal to 0. But let me show you why. So I think everybody could agree that this line here would be y is equal to 2 because it's a horizontal line passing through y is equal to 2. So guys, why wouldn't this be y is equal to 0? Following the same pattern. I'm going to draw the line y is equal to 0 and we're going to look for points of intersection. So we have a point of intersection right here and we have a point of intersection right here. And so these would be my answers. So my answer would be when y is equal to 0, x is equal to 0. We're seeing that over here because this point, if we read off this point here is 0, 0. And if I read off this point over here, it's going to be 4, 0. Remember, it's always the x value first and the y value. So we moved 4 spaces to the right and I didn't move up or down, so it's 0 for the y value. Right, so when y is equal to 0, x is equal to 0, and when y is equal to 0, x is equal to 4. Another way I could have wrote it was when x is equal to 0, y is equal to 0 when x is equal to 4, y is equal to 0. So my answer to this particular question is A, which says x is equal to 0 when y is equal to 0, and x is equal to 4 when y is equal to 0. That being said, let me show you all another way you could have worked this question out. So to work this question out, you could have equated y is equal to 4x minus x squared to 0. Why am I saying that? Well, if y is equal to 0, then I can make a substitution. So I'll say 0 is equal to 4x minus x squared. And so I'll factor out the x terms. So if I factor out x, that's going to be 4 minus x, and I can equate the factors. So that's going to be 0 is equal to x, or I can write x is equal to 0, I'll prefer to do that. And I can say 4 minus x is equal to 0. So minus x is equal to minus 4, and so x would be equal to 4. Right, so you can see for yourself, this is a typical method. So when y is equal to 0, x is equal to 0, and x is equal to 4. Hope you understand that. Let's move on. Question 50. If h of x is equal to 4x squared minus 6, then h of minus a half is, right, so we have a function here, and the function says whatever you're putting in, you're going to square it, multiply by 4, and then minus 6. To find for h of minus a half, I'm just going to replace x with minus a half. But you need to put it in brackets. So it's going to be 4 minus a half squared minus 6. Now minus a half squared means minus a half by minus a half. A negative by negative is a plus. 1 by 1 is 1, and 2 by 2 is 4. So you're going to end up with 4 by a quarter minus 6. 4 by a quarter is 1. 1 minus 6 is equal to minus 5. And so my answer for 50 is B.
Very quick maths.
A line L is perpendicular to the line 2x minus y minus 8 is equal to 0. What is the gradient of the line L? So anytime two lines are perpendicular, and what does that mean? That means that the two lines exist at right angles to each other. That's what it means. That's what perpendicular means. And if two lines are perpendicular, then the gradients are the negative reciprocal of each other. So the gradients of perpendicular lines are the negative reciprocal of each other. And for example, let's just say we had a line and its gradient was equal to minus a half. Then the gradient of the line perpendicular to that will be the negative reciprocal. So all you're going to do is you're going to change the sign and flip it. So we're going to change negative to plus, and we're going to flip it. So that's going to become 2 over 1, and so that's it. 2. That's what I mean by negative reciprocal. Just change the sign and flip it, right? But here the thing, guys. I could do that, but I would first need to figure out the gradient in this question. And so for me to read off the gradient from this line, I'll have to put this in the form y is equal to mx plus c. So to put this in that form, I'm going to make y the subject. So everything that isn't y, I'm going to move it across to the right hand side. So that 2x is going to move across, that minus 8 is going to be moved across, and notice the sign is changing. Anytime you move across something, the sign changes. Now I have minus y. For me to be able to read off the gradient, it needs to be y is equal to. So to get y, I'd multiply both sides by minus 1. Minus y by minus 1 is just y. Minus 2 by minus 1 is 2x. And minus 1 by positive 8 is minus 8. So now we could compare it directly. And so y is equal to mx plus c. And you could see that the gradient is 2. Now, if the gradient here is 2, then a line perpendicular to that would have a gradient of minus a half. Why? I could write 2 as 2 over 1. And if I flip that and I change the sign, it's going to become minus a half. And this would be the gradient of the line perpendicular to the line with equation 2x minus y minus 8 is equal to 0. So my answer for this particular question is minus a half. So 51b. 52. Which of the following sets is represented by the function f of x is equal to x squared plus 3, where x is an element of 0, 1, 2, and 3. So they're giving us the domain, and they want us to figure out the range. And they want us to list the answers in terms of ordered pairs or coordinates. Right, so we have a function, and the function is f of x is equal to x squared plus 3. So I'm going to plug in my first value for x, which is 0. So when x is 0, I'm going to get 0 squared plus 3. So y would be equal to 3. So my first ordered pair or coordinate would be when x is 0, y is 3. For those who are confused, f of x means the same thing as y. Remember, when you plug something into a function, you get the y value. So when you plug an x value into a function, you get the y value. So that's my first ordered pair.
Boom.
Let's plug in 1 into the function now. So f of 1 would be 1 squared plus 3. So 1 squared is 1, 1 plus 3 is 4. And so y would be equal to 4. So that ordered pair would look like 1, 4, because when x is 1, y is 4. Let's do one more, and that should give us the answer. So let's do f of 2. F of 2 that would be equal to 2 squared plus 3. 2 squared is 4, 4 plus 3 is 7. So when x is 2, y is 7. So that's going to be 2, 7. So let's see which option we're going to pick. So we're looking for 0, 3, 1, 4, 2, 7. So the only option with 0, 3, 1, 4, 2, 7 is D. So this had to be the correct answer. Let's figure out the last one just for safety. So the last value of x is 3. So that's going to be 3 squared plus 3. 3 squared is 9, 9 plus 3 is 12. So the last one here would be 3, 12. And so my answer is definitely 52D. Let's move on. Question 53. The following diagram is a circle with its center at O, and they gave us angle POQ is 122 degrees, and they want us to find the value for y. So the angle at the center is going to be 2 times the angle at the circumference, granted that both of them are standing on the same arc, which they are. So the arc is PQ, and both of them are standing up on that same arc, as you could see. So it says that the angle at the center is going to be 2 times the angle at the circumference, and so that's going to be 122 divided by 2. That's what y would be. So 122 divided by 2. 2 into 12 is 6. 2 into 2 is 1. So y would be equal to 61 degrees. So my answer for item 53 is 61 degrees. 54. In the following diagram, PQ and RS are parallel. Which of the following best describes the relationship between x and y? So this is clearly an example of alternating angles. Anytime you see this Z pattern, this is what we're talking about. So anytime you have alternating angles, it says that alternating angles would be equal. So angle x is equal to angle y. So quite simple, 54A. Let's move on. Question 55. The following diagram shows a triangle ABC and its image A prime, B prime, C prime, and A double prime, B double prime, C double prime after triangle ABC undergoes a composite transformation. And they want us to figure out what sequence of transformations will map triangle ABC onto its image, triangle A double prime, B double prime, C double prime. That was a mouthful. So the first transformation would be looking like a reflection, right? And we need to figure out the axis of symmetry. So to figure out the axis of symmetry, this is what you could do. So we have 4 blocks in between. Wait, let me just count that. Yeah, what is 4 blocks? So the axis of symmetry would be in the half mark. So that would be right here. And that's a little trick you could use. And so that would be, that's x is equal to 1. So triangle ABC is mapped onto A prime, B prime, C prime by a reflection about the line x is equal to 1. Alright? And then A prime, B prime, C prime is mapped onto A double prime, B double prime, C double prime. And that seems to be a translation. So a translation always consists of the x movement first and then the y movement. So let's look at point B. So I'm going to take point B and I'm going to shift it. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then I'd have to move it. So that is minus 3 because I'm moving to the left. And let's continue going. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that'll be 4 units down. So that's going to be minus 4. So it looks like a translation of minus 3, minus 4. So I'm looking for a reflection about x is equal to 1 and a translation of minus 3, minus 4. Let's see if we can see that. Alright, so that's the first option. The first option says a reflection in the line x is equal to 1 followed by a translation of minus 3, minus 4. So that's my answer there. Let's move on. 56. In each of the following diagrams, A prime is the image of A. Which of the diagrams shows a reflection in the x-axis? So what do I mean by reflection in the x-axis? This is the x-axis, and so a reflection would be like this. So it's clearly not A, it's clearly not B, clearly not C, it has to be D. Right, so I think everybody can see what I'm talking about. If we're talking about a reflection about the x-axis, you're literally reflecting it about the x-axis. There's not much to explain. And if we were talking about a reflection about the y-axis, this would be it. 57. In triangle ABC, angle A is equal to x and angle B is equal to 2x. What is the size of angle C? So let me just draw a little diagram here. This could be A, this could be B, and this could be C. So this is x degrees, and angle B is 2x degrees. And so if I want to figure out for this now, I would have to add up a and b and subtract it from 180. Why? Because a full triangle comprises of 180 degrees. So that's going to be 180 degrees minus 2x plus x degrees. And so that's going to work out to be 180 degrees minus 3x degrees. And so my answer is A. Let's move on. 58. The following diagram shows the angle of elevation of a point Z from X. The angle of elevation of the point Z from X is 35 degrees. If X is 15 meters from Z, then the height YZ in meters is, alright. So they give us an angle of elevation, and what does elevate mean? Think of elevate as looking up. Imagine you're over here and you are looking up. That's why it's called angle of elevation. And they're saying that X is 15 meters, so they're giving us a length. And then the height YZ is what they want me to figure out for. So this is clearly an instance where we have to use trig ratios. Why? Is because I don't have two lengths. I have an angle though, and it's a right angle triangle. So this is going to be my hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the slant length, and it's the longest. This is the adjacent because it's adjacent to the angle. It's right next to the angle. And this will be the opposite because it's the side opposite to the angle. And so let me show you all how we're going to do this. So we want to figure out for YZ. So this will be YZ. And so we need to use O. And the other one we're going to use is what we have. And we have the hypotenuse. So we definitely have to use one with sine in it. So that's going to be sine theta equal to O over H. And for those of you that have a hard time remembering it, it's SOHCAHTOA. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so I definitely have to use that. So my angle is going to be 35. The opposite is the unknown, and the hypotenuse is 15. So I need to find for the opposite, so I'll multiply throughout by 15. So O would be equal to 15 sine 35. So guys, for those of you all that are confused, all I did was multiply by 15 on both sides, so that it would have cancelled off and I'd have been left with O. And so I just swap after. So O is equal to 15 sine 35, and that's it. So my answer for this question is C. Question 59. The following is a pair of similar triangles. So what does similar triangles mean? Similar triangles are triangles that have the same angles and same properties, and you could scale them up or you could scale them down. So in this particular question, it looks like we're scaling it down. So we're going from 6 to 3, so we're scaling it down by a factor of a half. So if you want to figure out the length MO, well, if we're scaling it down by a half, if this is 7 centimeters, then this would definitely have to be 3.5 centimeters, which is half of 7. So the answer here is B. So 59B. So let's move on. Last question. Under the translation -2,3, the image of -5,3 is, so guys, all you have to do here is just add the horizontal component to the x component and add the y component to the y component for the image. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to add -2 to -5, right? And I'm going to add 3 to 3. So -2 plus -5, that's just going to be -7. And 3 plus 3 is 6. So my answer is 60C. That's it. So I hope this was beneficial. If you enjoyed the video and you learned something and you reached to the end, drop a 1 in the chat. You know why I say drop a 1? Because all you go and get 1s. That is why. No 2s, no 3s, 1s fit. So yeah guys, best of luck with revision. See you all in the marathon tomorrow.